It's just another day in the life of a military wife, and we're going to talk about Memorial Day today. So, as a kid, I always thought of Memorial Day as a chance to just get together with my extended family and have a barbecue and a pool party. And looking back, that's kind of sad because we have a very long history of family who have served in the military all the way back to the Revolutionary War. And just to have not understood the purpose of Memorial Day is, well, I feel like I missed out. But we're going to talk about history of it. And honestly, it wasn't until I became a military spouse that I was able to get the difference between Veterans Day and Memorial Day correct. And that's because I messed it up our first year as a military family, and a wonderful military spouse explain the difference. So we're going to talk about that, and I'm going to include some ideas of ways that you can remember those who've given their lives for us and this Memorial Day. So it's a little bit more than just barbecue and a day off. I'm really grateful to share this topic with you. It's close to home and very near and dear to my heart. So I am your host, Sam Wolf, and this is Life of a Military Wife. Let's start off by going through the history of Memorial Day. Memorial Day was first established May 5th, 1868, and was first observed the 30th of that month at Arlington Cemetery as the first major national observance. And the whole purpose was because it was actually called Decoration Day at the beginning, not Memorial Day. It was to decorate the graves of the fallen Union soldiers from the Civil War, was the official stated purpose. And part of the logic that people think was behind putting it at the end of May was because flowers would naturally be in bloom and easy to acquire pretty much nationwide to decorate the graves of the soldiers. And it was, again, something people did was going to the cemetery and decorating the graves, and that was mainly what was done for a long time. And it wasn't until 1971 that Memorial Day became a national holiday and was moved to the last Monday in May, and the name was changed. Now, some people still call it Decoration Day, and there are places where that is still a tradition. My step family has that tradition of decorating graves on Memorial Day weekend. And in certain parts of the country, it's a very big activity. But by and large, Memorial Day is a national holiday that people celebrate with barbecues and stuff. But in 2000, Congress decided to pass a bill basically establishing an official moment of silence on Memorial Day. And anyway, so that's basically how Memorial Day was established. Memorial Day is primarily to celebrate and remember those who have given the ultimate sacrifice for the freedom of our country. People who have died while serving in the armed forces. And I know in a lot of places it's extended to include anyone who has served, who has passed away. That is different than Veterans Day, which initially was established to celebrate those who were still living, who had served in the armed forces. It now includes active duty who are celebrated on Veterans Day, but that's the main difference. Veterans Day is for those who are still living. Memorial Day is for those who've passed on. And so with that in mind, there was something I wanted to share that I had never experienced until we became a military family. And that is the empty table ceremony, or I believe that's what it's. Let me double check my notes because I do not have a perfect memory. It's the empty place setting. That's what it is. The empty place setting ceremony. And actually, the first place I saw this done was at a Chick-fil-A, and it really caught my attention and had me ask some friends about it. Evidently, the VFW and a lot of other places will have full ceremonies for this. But basically, they set an empty table for those who have fallen, for those who are no longer with us. And they set it with a nice table setting, so china, something like that. And that is what caught my attention. We were at a Chick-fil-A, and there was a table completely set, all fancy with china. And I'm like, what is going on? But evidently, that was their way of honoring the airmen at the installation who had lost their lives for our country. Anyway, it's a round table to symbolize everlasting concern, a red rose to remember those who are missing, a lemon on the bread plate to remind us of the bitter fate of those who have been captured, a pinch of salt to symbolize the tears of their families, a inverted glass to show that they are unable to join with us, a single tapered candle as a representation of vigilance and hope, an empty chair for their loss, and then wildflowers to symbolize the families and spouses and their strength, pride, service, and resilience. And that was just so touching the first time I saw that. And I'm not recommending everybody do that, but if you want to go ahead and do that and add that to your Memorial Day, feel free. I think it's a wonderful way to represent and remember those who are not with us, and those who really gave everything. So that said, I'm going to share a couple ideas. Some are really simple, some are a little more in depth, of ways to remember those who have sacrificed for our country. And then the first one goes back to what I stated a few minutes ago about the moment of silence that was established by Congress in 2000. And that is actually observe the moment of silence. It was established to be held at 3 p.m. on Memorial Day. So I have put it in my calendar, a reminder to have that moment of silence and to talk to the kids about it before we have that moment of silence. Because I've got young kids, and so if you want them to be quiet for anything, you have to explain why first. The other is to fly a flag. That one's pretty easy. It's not a very complicated thing to do, but it's something simple you can do. And while you're putting out that flag, explain to your kids, if you've got kids, the purpose of the flag and what it represents and why we're putting it out on that day in particular. The next is visit a veteran and actually sit and take time to listen to their stories. I was blessed to have a lot of veterans that I knew growing up, some family friends, and I really enjoyed listening to all their stories. And particularly heartbreaking was listening to the stories of my great-grandfather, who his two best friends from high school had been serving in the Philippines prior to World War II and were taken prisoner and part of the Bataan Death March. And one of them never made it back. So it's just, that's something that always comes back to my mind, is the pain of losing his friend, and especially in that way. Another thing you could do is go to a Memorial Day parade. Again, there weren't a lot of parades last year, so I'm looking forward to parades again. I really like parades. For a while, we were stationed in a small town, And it was really fun taking the kids to the Memorial Day parade, especially being in a small town, in a small military town. The whole community came out and celebrated, and it was just this big, huge deal. And I loved taking the kids and having them wave flags and just getting to be part of that. Especially since the base would send stuff, send representatives to march in the parade as well. The other idea that I ran across was to visit a battlefield. We had the great fortune when was it? Oh gosh, some while ago to go to Fort McHenry. And I'm not even sure, I think Fort McHenry's open on Memorial Day. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But going to Fort McHenry, my husband they asked if there was any active duty or veterans in the crowd. And I, of course, ratted my husband out. And he got to raise the large flag at Fort McHenry. That was the same size as the flag that they raised after the battle of Fort McHenry, where the Star-Spangled Banner was written. And just to have my kids get to see their dad participate in that was just an amazing experience, and a celebration of our country and the sacrifices made for it. The last idea is near and dear to my heart. It's something I've done a couple times, and that is share a picture and a story of an ancestor on social media who served and has passed on. And I've done this a couple times, and it's something that means a lot to me because I have quite a few family members who have served and passed on. I recently found out about a cousin of mine who enlisted to serve in World War I and went to basic training. And in basic training, so that he could go serve in the First World War, he contracted the Spanish flu and died. And just how tragic that was for his family. And having just gone through a pandemic ourselves, it was very poignant to me that he was willing to do that, to leave home in the middle of a pandemic to serve his country because he felt that was what he needed to do. Anyway, that's, again, something I've done frequently, and I really enjoy seeing stories of other family members and other friends and their family members who have passed on and served. So I encourage you guys to do that. Do one of those things. A few years ago, I decided to compile every picture I could find of anyone in my family or my husband's family who had served in the military. And 2 years ago, I put together a slideshow of all the pictures. Actually, I've done this a few times, but to different songs, to post on Memorial Day, just because I like putting slideshows together. I really like doing those, video slideshows with music. It's just something I've enjoyed doing for a long time, and I really felt strongly about doing this one. And particularly because of a song I had run across, and it is called "What Did He Die For?" And off the top of my head, honestly, I don't remember who wrote the song, or at least I'm not confident. I'm afraid I'm going to say it wrong. So it will be included in the link in the description. But it made such a strong impact on me, this song, "What Did He Die For?", that I felt compelled to make a whole new video montage for Memorial Day, including some updated photos, particularly one of a cousin of mine who passed away while overseas. And the reason is because of the verses, the words. And there's one particular verse that is really powerful, and I kind of want to share it with you. This first verse, it's, what did he do? I can see him struggling up that hill without a thought of turning back. He's talking about D-Day. And I can't help but wonder, what did he die for? When he died for you and me, gave a sacrifice so that we could all be free. And if nothing else, I encourage you to take a moment to think about what they died for when they died for you and me, when they gave that sacrifice so that we could live a free life. And the next part of that song is, I believe that we will answer each to heaven for the way we spend our priceless liberty. And I feel like that is a question that has resounded, and a statement that has resounded with me a lot lately, is how am I living my life? Because so many have given so much so that we could have the blessings and the freedoms and the opportunities we have in this country. But that doesn't mean we get to sit back and say, okay, everything's great, we're good. There are still things to be done. There are still people to help. And my mom would always say, be the good you want to see in the world. Basically, if you want good things to happen in this world, then you've got to do something about it. And that's what I'm asking for y'all, is if we want to see good in our country, if we want to see freedom, and then we need to be a part of it. We need to be involved in it. We need to talk about it. We need to teach it. We need to show it. We need to be an example. And that is part of the reason why I'm so proud of my husband and his choice, and the choice of everyone in our armed forces right now who've decided to sacrifice and represent and defend our country, and to be willing to uphold freedom and protect and serve. Anyway, wrapping up, I hope you're able to incorporate some of these ideas into your Memorial Day observance this year. And please share those experiences with me. If you are trying to incorporate some of these ideas for the first time and maybe explaining the purpose of Memorial Day to your kids, I'd love to hear about how that goes. If you're able to go visit one of our amazing veterans who are still alive from World War II, please share their stories. I love hearing about those. And yeah, I hope that you have a wonderful Memorial Day with your families and loved ones, and take a time to remember those who have given everything, because they did it for a reason, and they did it for you. Anyway, that said, this is Life of a Military Wife, and I am your host, Sam Wolf. Thanks for joining.